Okay, you could start.
Good morning, class. I'm Ms. Janella Carrera, and Mr. Nigel Ramdale will be lecturing to you today on Chapter 5, Understanding Others. You are free to ask questions and also give your own viewpoints on the topic. We also have sitting in with us Mr. Wayne Bisu, Senior Lecturer. He can further explain or verify the information provided in the text. Okay, so what do you wonder about the motives and behaviors of others when you're in a typical organizational meeting or in a classroom setting such as this? Understanding others. A central goal of understanding yourself is to develop a sense of awareness that can result in true community and common purpose with others. There are three central questions you need to ask yourself in any setting. How am I like no one else here? How am I like some others here? Or how am I like everyone here? Each of us brings uniqueness and individuality to any situation. As we explored in Chapter 4, your skills, background, and preferences create a unique person, you. But you are not alone. To be truly inclusive and empowering, we must also understand others. The importance of this cannot be overstated. As a nation becomes more diverse and the world becomes smaller and more connected through technology, it becomes flatter, according to Friedman. Understanding others is a necessity for all leaders. In this chapter, we will explore various individual characteristics that illustrate how difference needs to be understood to be inclusive and empowering. Also, explore various leadership processes that are influenced by diverse approaches and discuss communication skills that are useful in working effectively with others in leadership. In Chapter 4, you explored your value system and your psychological preferences. Others might be similar to you or very different from you. If others look the same, they may have different values, preferences, or approaches to learning. Some of these differences in ourselves and others come from our gender, ethnicity, or culture. Some come from our environments. Individuality and commonality. In the grand scheme of the living human species, we are more alike than we are different. Finding common human purpose is the focus on which to center our perceptions of difference. On a transcendent level, something binds you to everyone around you, no matter how different they may seem. The poet Maya Angelou has remarkable insight in the commonalities of being human. In her poem, Human Family, she describes all of our uniqueness as people that set us apart, but concludes, "We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike." In any group setting, you can look around and see others who look like you. You will see men or women, people with visible facial or ethnic characteristics, or people of different ages. Also, you might see people wearing symbolic attire like your own, for example, your wedding ring, school ring, or uniforms, etc. What about ideas and shared experiences? Although we come from different services, I am sure we can relate to similar experiences. The challenge of leadership is coming to common purpose from the vast differences that individuals bring to a situation. Finding the purpose, vision, and common commitments that create a we from a group of individuals is the challenge of community. The English language may well be the only one that values the individual to such a degree that the word for the first person singular I is capitalized. This emphasis on the individual is grounded in a predominantly Western tradition. Those with non-Western roots may find it easier to envision we because those cultural traditions emphasize the collective, the family, or the group. To truly establish a sense of we, the individual needs to let go of self enough to see the connections to others. Leadership educators have encouraged I, you, we. This might best be expressed symbolically by showing that the focus on the individual I, which is the capital I, needs to be de-emphasized to common I, to truly listen and engage with another you as equals so that all can move forward to become a community we. One challenge then is to understand yourself well enough to know how you are seen by others and to modify your own behaviors and attitudes to encourage a spirit of openness and connection with others. The second challenge is to engage in the hard work of understanding others so that together you can form meaningful community and engage in coalitions for group change. Understanding gender diversity. How does my gender influence my attitudes and behaviors? How does my experience as a man or woman shape my worldview, and how might it shape the worldview of others? Characteristics of gender differences are too numerous to develop fully, but it is important to realize that we all deal with both sex roles and gender roles. The two terms are often used interchangeably, but sex roles are those expectations resulting from biology, like pregnancy or muscle mass, whereas gender roles are socially constructed expectations that get labeled masculine or feminine. Gender roles are often limiting and inaccurate when assigned to an individual, men and women. For example, although only women can bear children, women are not the only sex to be nurturing of children. Historically, men's involvement in the development of children has been limited because that role has been considered feminine and nurturing. Likewise, women may be athletic, but it has been hard for women to engage in sports that require high physical contact like football and rugby, because those sports are considered masculine. Women who are not nurturing or men who are not athletic may suffer from gender role discrimination by acting or being different from conventional paradigms. Likewise, those who hold a conventional leadership expectation that leaders should be decisive, in charge, competitive, and self-reliant may be holding a traditional masculine paradigm that excludes many women, as well as many men who are very capable but who do not lead from that perspective. Even those parents who make sure the storybooks their children read do not promote gender role or sex role stereotypes, and who give dolls to their sons and trucks to their daughters, soon realize that other socialization agents like peers, toys, television, and conversations on the bus going to school every morning reinforce traditional gender messages. Many boys learn to be tough, objective, unemotional, and competitive. And many girls learn to be polite, caring, emotional, and supportive. To understand how men and women have come to be as they are, We can learn from children's development. The way we play in childhood establishes patterns of how we work and communicate as adults. The social learning that happens with play and many other experiences often leads females to seek value, intimacy, and relationships, whereas males often seek and value independence. Think of how rare it is in entertainment to find people who play roles that are different from conventional gender roles. Can you think of a television show or a movie in which a woman played a role traditionally viewed as being for a male, or in which a man played a role traditionally reserved for a woman, sorry? I could think of the movie Salt, where Angelina Jolie played the role of an assassin, and then you have Robin Williams played the role of a nanny to get income and also to be close to his children. Those are two unconventional roles played. I don't know if anyone could think of others. I'm sure there are many others, but those two come to my mind. Expectations that limit people's range of roles and suppress their individuality will likely inhibit their effectiveness in their communities. Sex or gender, however, is only one identity perspective we bring to a situation. We all have other salient social identities that are based on attributes such as our culture, ethnicity, age, or sexual orientation. Understanding cultural diversity. Culture encompasses everything about how a group of people thinks, feels, and behaves. It is their pattern of knowledge. It is a body of common understandings. Culture is the sum total of ways of living, including values, beliefs, aesthetic standards, linguistic expression, that is physical form used to represent, like how you express language, your speech, visual images, that kind of thing. Patterns of thinking, behavioral norms, and styles of communication, which a group of people has developed to assure its survival in a particular physical and human environment. Culture and the people who are part of it interact so that culture is not static. We may be so embedded in our culture that it is hard to see it clearly. Culture is therefore a broad term that could be applied to an office or a campus, to aging, or to a group of people who share a common race or ethnicity, sorry. Many cultures coexist simultaneously in any group. Effective leaders need to develop an appreciation for multiculturalism to build inclusiveness, collaboration, and common purpose. A prerequisite to develop a great sense of multiculturalism is conscious awareness of culturally informed assumptions. Culture has often been described in terms of race and ethnicity. We encourage you to be cautious about the construct of race. Race. Race is a somewhat suspect concept used to identify large groups of human species who share a more or less distinctive combination of hereditary physical characteristics, according to Hughes and Push. The California newsreel entitled Race, The Power of an Illusion, explores this concept in detail in a 3-hour video series and presents evidence that the very concept of race has no biological foundation. According to their website, as displayed here, the division of the world's peoples into distinct groups, red, black, white, or yellow peoples, has become so deeply embedded in our psyches, so widely accepted, Many would promptly dismiss as crazy any suggestion of its falsity. Yet that's exactly what this provocative 3-hour series by California Newsreel claims. Race, the power of an illusion, questions the very idea of race as biology, suggesting that a belief in race is no more sound than believing that the sun revolves around the earth, yet race still matters. Just because race doesn't exist in biology doesn't mean it isn't very real, helping shape life, chances, and opportunities. Yet, historically, race has been a very powerful aspect of life in the United States and continues to impact every campus today. It has been used to marginalize whole groups of people, and students on campuses experience racism every day. The relational leadership model, with its emphasis on inclusion and empowerment, embraces the belief that the group, team, organization, community, nation, and world will be made better when all participants are heard, made visible, and valued for their contributions. Historically, the dominant culture, the culture in the powerful majority, has not had to examine its beliefs and practices because it is not disadvantaged by them. The majority norms often became the standards used to judge others who are not in the majority. America's attention to racial and ethnic diversity has led to new awareness of what it means to be white and of European origin in the American culture, hence the phrase white privilege. One example of this is shopping without being followed. In a general sense, it is useful to think of privileges afforded any of us by virtue of personal characteristics that place us in a powerful majority. For example, being male, heterosexual, able bodied, educated, financially comfortable, and examine closely how unconsciously affirming the privileges associated with those characteristics may actually cause or influence the oppression of others, even though oppression is unintended. Chris Cullinan describes privilege in a slightly different way. She notes that people with privilege are presumed to be innocent, worthy, and competent. We must examine how the characteristics of these forms of privilege may be attached to our expectations of what it means to be a leader or to not be a leader. We must learn to value or at least recognize that leadership may take on different characteristics. Understanding international diversity. To be successful in dealing with people from other cultures, managers need knowledge about cultural differences and similarities among countries. They also need to understand the implications of the differences and the skills required to act and decide appropriately and in a culturally sensitive way, according to Javidan and House. Understanding how to work with persons from other countries is even more complex, but can be an exciting and rewarding experience. At times, it can also be very challenging. One of the great opportunities afforded to college students is the chance to get to work and know students from other nations. And if you have that opportunity to study abroad. Katz DeVries and Florent Tracy note that global leadership development means increasing one's adaptability, cultural empathy, acceptance of ambiguity, lack of xenophobia. Xenophobia is a fear or a dislike, a prejudice for persons from other countries. cultural relativity, awareness of one's own roots, and cultural biases, and as if quality. Project Globe. This is global leadership and organizational behavior effectiveness, an extensive international study of thousands of middle managers define culture as a set of shared values and beliefs, in which values are people's aspirations about the way things should be done, and the beliefs are people's perceptions of how things should be done in their countries. This study identified 9 dimensions of culture that differed from country to country: assertiveness, future orientation, gender differentiation, uncertainty, avoidance, power distance. This is power expected to be shared unequally within the culture. Institutional emphasis on collectivism versus individualism. In group collectivism, this is membership in small groups and families, performance orientation, and humane orientation. This is fairness, generosity, and caring. All this is according to Javidan and House. Some countries seem to be higher than others in different dimensions. For example, people in the United States are thought to be more male-dominated than people in England, but less people in Germany. Knowledge about other countries becomes increasingly important as the world becomes more connected. Your cultural heritage. Cultural heritage is an expression of the ways of living developed by a community and passed on from generation to generation, including customs, practices, places, objects, artistic expressions, and values. Cultural heritage is often expressed either in tangible or tangible cultural heritage. We encourage you to read about your cultural heritage to see how you may have acquired the values and beliefs of your culture or ethnicity, and in what ways you have diverged from them. Read also about a group that is different from your own. The benefits of working with people who are different from you are extreme. If you are an effective leader, you will be inclusive in many facets of the word. As an individual in a leadership position, it is crucial to possess the ability to hear and be open-minded and inclusive of different people of different ideas. This ability to accept and work with one another strongly adds to the knowledge base of the group. Building multicultural appreciation. Being an effective leader or participant in a diverse organization, or being a leader who brings diversity to an organization, requires that we know more about developing an openness and appreciation of various cultures and aspects of how others may differ. Paul Pedersen supports this idea by noting that individuals need to develop their awareness, knowledge, and skills to be able to work effectively in a multicultural environment. David Hoops presents an intercultural learning process model that describes how we develop and learn to communicate clearly and understand people and cultures that seem different from our own. The first stage is ethnocentrism. In this stage, we believe that our own culture or way of doing things is best, even superior to others. People with ethnocentric views can be intolerant and even hostile to others from different cultures. Racism and sexism grow from this base. As we expand our experiences, we begin to know to move out of ethnocentrism and our awareness is raised. We begin to acknowledge that many different cultures exist as awareness of culture grows. we move to some level of understanding derived from experiences, learning and acquiring information and knowledge. So from ethnocentrism, we transition to awareness. This involves acknowledging the other cultures that exist. We have understanding. This is acquiring the knowledge of other cultures. Acceptance and respect. That's when you accept the validity of other cultures. We have appreciating and valuing. This is understanding that cultures have strengths and weaknesses. This leads to an understanding and appreciation of our cultures. We have selection adoption. This is where you try to adopt new attitudes and behaviors from other cultures, which are believed to be useful and desirable to emulate. And then we have multiculturalism. This is an ideal state and ongoing process where a person is able to feel comfortable in and communicate effectively with people from many cultures in any situation. The goal of this process is multiculturalism, which is not a final state, but an ongoing process to comfort in learning about and appreciating other cultures, a lifelong learning task. This openness to new experiences enriches a person's own life and makes it possible to share aspects of a person's own culture that may be of value to others. How we view others who are different from ourselves is complex. There is some evidence that this is a developmental or sequential process during which we move from complete unawareness as a child to some degree of acceptance or appreciation as a mature adult. Through the years, we begin to learn through positive and negative experiences. As a result of these experiences, some people learn to dislike and fear differences. In extreme cases, fears can lead to racism, homophobia, or sexism. Other experiences lead us to be appreciative and to embrace many differences. In the previous section, we illustrated the progression from ethnocentrism to multiculturalism. One model that applies to attitudes towards many differences is the Riddle scale, as depicted in the exhibit here. For the first 4 stages of the scale, repulsion, pity, tolerance, and acceptance, and negative attitudes, because they come from a belief that the person who is different is somehow of less value than oneself. The second group of 4 stages of the scale support admiration, appreciation, and nurturance are positive levels of the scale because the other person is of value just as oneself is. Dorothy Riddle developed this model originally as a scale for homophobia to understand attitudes towards gay and lesbian people, but students have found it helpful as a conceptual model for understanding other differences, as well as attitudes toward people with physical disabilities or different religious practices. I now hand you over to Mr. Ramdev.
Thank you, Janella. It's in the screen.
Yeah.
It's in the screen?
Yes,
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Good day to all. Good day to the class and good day to Mr. Bisoun. Today, I'll talk about what's going on with others. As we all know, we have to get along with others. So let's go. Cultural influences on leadership behavior. Rebecca Mooney, a resident assistant at the University of Maryland, states, to be successful as a leader or in a leadership role, one should always consider perspectives from a variety of people or groups. Let us look at how culture will give us a way to view the perspectives of others. Firstly, what is culture and why is it important to leadership? Culture in its simplest form can be described as a set of beliefs, practices, and symbols that form an all-encompassing, integrated whole which binds people together and shape their worldviews and ways of life. Basically, culture is making you who you are. Your culture has a great effect on you. As you can see from the diagram here, art, drama, music, beliefs, your language, your customs, your faith, the food, all these things shape who you are. People behaviors are the result of a complex interaction of many important background elements. It is more effective to watch people's behavior and try to understand their attitudes than to make assumptions about differences between people based on stereotypes. Consider the impact of culture on leadership processes include communication, conflict resolution, and decision making. Becoming aware of how sex, race, ethnicity, age, sexual identity, religion, ability, or financial status influence our own and the behavior of others in groups is a step towards being an effective relational leader. Based on our cultural influences, we differ in personality preferences, attitudes, styles, value systems, beliefs, and opinions. Let's have a little more in-depth view of culture. Culture is passed on through customs and traditions and our interactions with various groups. While we are not born with a particular culture, we have the ability to develop any culture. So we learn in that culture. We can go in, learn the culture. The way we learn culture comes in various forms from observation, life experiences, or what we are taught. To say that a group of people share a culture does not necessarily mean that all individuals think or act in identical ways. However, they do share many things in common. Culture is changing and is integrated and interrelated. Integrated culture meaning adopting another culture without diminishing your own. Culture promotes order through norms, values, and acceptance of the laws. You know, when we in Trinidad, we doing our own thing, and when we go foreign, we accepting the laws, we following it, culture. Why is it so? Why is this also important? You may ask yourself, what does this have to do with the workplace? The culture of an organization can be observed in the workplace. For example, in my organization, it is expected that staff are told to report an hour or two before they are required to function, causing persons to be waiting a long period of time before the exercise begins. I don't know how many of you could share with this, but this is just what happens. In other places, it may be quite different. So knowing the culture is important for any leader to be successful. On seeing various factors of culture affecting behavior, it is apparent that describing somebody solely on the basis of one component of the identity is wrong. Closely examining the variety of human behaviors that are important in leadership situations. Some people may be highly verbal, with strong oral traditions, while others may be verbally reserved, prefer thoughtful writing. Some may be outgoing, expressive, and emotional, whereas the cultural assumption of others lead them to be thoughtful, objective, and analytical. Depending on the mix of individuals, some will be open and revealing, whereas others will be closed and guarded. Some cultural assumptions may lead people to be direct and factual. Others have learned to be symbolic and metaphorical. Some have been taught to value direct, bold eye contact. Others find respect in indirect body languages. Some have learned to be timely and value promptness. Other cultures valuing casual approaches. Let's look at speech community and how valuable it is in helping to guide our understanding of others. Speech community exists in the groups from which we associate. For example, We as a law enforcement community comes with its own norms and values, languages, verbal and non-verbal, or even auditory stimuli, such as whistles and alarms. Other examples are calling women ma'am and men sir, or the way we speak when using wireless communication. That's like we say we alpha, papa, bravo, delta. Law enforcement will understand it, but to the average man, he would not understand. So having a grasp of speech culture will also help you to better understand the individuals in your organization. Types of communication. So how do we communicate? Culture is transferred in many ways, and understanding the channels will help the leader to be more effective in communicating. Here we can see that the modes of communication are verbal, non-verbal, written, and visual. Conflict resolution, right? So conflict is part of our lives, and how we deal with it determines the outcome. Individuals display a diverse array of behaviors, from confrontational to subtle. Some may embrace taking responsibility and accountability, while others may prefer to blame, and yet others may seek peace and save face. Some people believe their approach is the only way to go and refuse to consider other possibilities, while others look for compromises. Others have learned to be aggressive with authority figure, and some have learned to be deferential to authority. Some people will associate resolution with principles such as environmental harmony. Relational leadership requires the ability to resolve conflict. Almost every change initiative will entail some level of disagreement. It's critical to stay focused on the goal of the transition while preserving strong relationships in an inclusive and ethical manner. Conflict resolution requires various skills and training and is affected by several factors. Can anybody say what are some of the factors you think will affect conflict or cause conflict? Hello, anybody? What are some of the factors you think would be contributing to conflict?
Poor communication.
That's right, poor communication. Very good. So given that you look at some of the factors, right? Firstly, a reason for conflict is simply what this whole topic is about: understanding others. If we don't understand others, or we don't understand what we're dealing with, we're gonna have problems, right? So with the cultural differences, ineffective communication, and different expectations, these will be some causes of conflict. So we have decision making. Decisions are part of our everyday lives. Some may be routine and some may choose to flip a coin or follow your feelings, and other decisions require higher levels of thought. As you can see from the chart here, this outlines how we go about making decisions, effective decisions. So you identify this decision, gather information, identify alternatives, weigh the evidence, choose among the alternatives, take action, and review your decision. The decisions we make as leaders can have great impact, and careful deliberation should be made. As all individuals in this class are in leadership roles, decisions should be made to best suit the organization. The way in which decisions are made reflects either those who value the power of majority rule and prefer voting, or those who seek inclusion of the minority opinion and value consensus. In some groups, if the will of the group does not emerge as apparent, an issue may be dropped completely and brought up at a later time. Some believe the hierarchy and authorities should decide, whereas others think the experts or those involved should decide. Communication and leadership. As a leader, effective communication is a must. Effective communication benefits almost every aspect of life. Persuasive speaking and excellent writing are only two aspects of communication abilities. It is important to remember the key role that nonverbal communication plays. As word notes, like verbal communication, nonverbal patterns reflect the value, perspectives, norms, and heritage of specific cultures. We communicate with our physical appearance, personal space, facial expression, gestures, touching, eye contact, the expression of emotions, and orientation towards time, all of which have cultural components. A component of communication is empathic listening, which is a dynamic and empathic process that entails more than simply taking in words of another person. You are also conversing with them. You are demonstrating that you care about them, their feelings, and opinions, and that you are ready to listen to them. Empathy entails using another person's standard and reference points to comprehend their situation. Sympathy, on the other hand, is placing oneself in the shoes of another person while maintaining your own perspective and using your own standard of judgment. As you can envision yourself understanding others' experience from their perspectives, imagine how they feel, and connecting with the emotions people are experiencing when they speak. You are employing empathy. This entails attempting to perceive people as they would like to be seen, as well as developing the ability to grasp others' feelings without being informed explicitly. An example of sympathy is in the following scenario, where Kate's dog died and her friend told her, "Don't worry, you'll get over it in time. It's not too bad, but look on the bright side, you can get a new dog." This statement is dismissive of Kate's feelings and denies her point of view. An empathetic response would sound more like, "I know how much you loved him. I know the pain you feel, as if you had lost your own son." Empathetic communication. Empathetic communication is a challenging skill to master. Consider the complexity of regular conversational procedures. As we could see from the slide, there's many ways to say things, and each element that process is influenced by our culture and gender lenses. What we say and how we say it has an impact on how the receiver interprets what we've conveyed. There are both verbal and non-verbal components to communication. For example, would you say tasks more? Who would you say talks more, men or women? Common stereotypical perception is that women talk more. Yet, in almost any co-educational class or setting, men likely will be the first to speak. They will speak more often for longer periods. When men and women include in their speech varies as well. What men and women include in their speech varies as well. Tannen notes a difference in public speaking and private speaking. Another way of stating is that males prefer report talking and females engage in rapport talking. Assertive communication. Socialization has clearly played an important role in how we have learned to converse with each other. Women feel silenced or have silenced themselves by assuming their opinions were of less value than others, or by being socialized to avoid conflict. They have learned to be harmonizers or peacemakers. Some men feel it is more manly to be aggressive, assuming that their opinions are of more value than others. In every communication, each person has the right to be heard and a responsibility to listen. Each has a right to make a request or ask a question, and the recipient has the right to make his or her own decision without apology. The types and communication employed can be unassertive, aggressive, and assertive. An example of unassertive is where you give up your rights to others and let them take advantage of you. After an encounter, you may wish you had said or done something different. For example, John is at a party with his friends and they ask him to take a drink, but John is driving. A passive response would be, nah, boy, I have to drive, but I'll take a small one. You know what I'm talking about. Aggressive response may result in conflict or feeling or ill feelings. A brief example of the aggressive response in John's situation would be, you're that kind of madman, like your mama dead. What kind of friend you is? You know, calling on them waiting with the breathalyzer down the road? Come now, man. Aggressive response. An assertive response would be, no thanks, I have to drive. However, if you can get a driver, I will consider it. If not, then it will have to be another time when I'm not driving. An individual might not always get his way, even if he communicated assertively, but he or she would have done what they could to be understood. Relational leadership model is a type of leadership the relational leadership model is a type of leadership that is based on relationships, empowering, ethical, and open to all. It is an ideal model that we recommend for establishing and sustaining healthy, ethical, and productive group, rather than a description of how leadership is already practiced in all groups or organizations. It is an all-encompassing model, understanding, appreciating, and actively embracing a variety of viewpoints, techniques, style, and features of uniqueness, such as sex or culture, that bring diverse perspectives to a group's activity, is what it means to be inclusive. So here we have a video. So, conclusion, sorry. Trying to experience what others are experiencing, particularly negative emotions, may be exhausting, but we still can do a good job dealing with the stressful decisions that leaders have to make through training and development. Many of us, you all will know that people will come to you as a leader and they will tell you things that happen in their lives. And if you really go to dive in and take on their emotions too much and you're going too deep, it is going to affect you. So we had to look out for that too, even though we could talk about empathy and so on, but we have to safeguard ourselves as well. So understanding other aims to understand why others behave the way they do will help us in better decision making and resolving conflict. We will now see that everyone has a story and several factors affect their behavior. Now let's look at this short clip. I will attempt to play it and hope it plays.
You've likely heard of the concept of perspective taking, putting yourself in other shoes. In fact,
We're not hearing the audio, Nigel.
No audio?
Yeah.
All right. Well, the link is there. The link is there in the references, sir.
All right, I'll see if I can share it with the class.
Yeah, so thank you all. That's the end of the presentation, sir. Thank you, class.
Any questions from anybody? All right, I'll stop the recording.